It looks like he dropped. Let's get
Yes,
him up.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sorry, I was trying to share my screen and I was dropped.
Are you all set?
Let me try again.
Need any help? If you can send me the PowerPoint, I can share it for you.
Sure, Mataji. I'm having trouble. Oh, actually, you know what? Let me try now. Is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Sorry for that glitch. Thank you so much once again for giving me this opportunity. I know you could be watching the final, the World Cup cricket game, but instead you chose to be here. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much. For the last 3 weeks, obviously, we've been a lot of great speakers have spoke about different pastimes from the Krishna book, and over the last week or so, we've been doing the pastimes from the Bhagavatam. And today, today my topic is the King Sudyumna becomes a woman. So we will get into it. Before that, I'll start with the prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So with this, let's get started. So this is from King Sudyumna becomes a woman. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 1. So in the next few minutes, we will go through, obviously, first thing is who is Sudyumna and how and why did he become a woman. And we also, this chapter also talks about how the dynasty of Vaivashvata Manu got amalgamated with Somavamsha, which is the dynasty coming from the moon. So here the stage is set. So with Parikshit Maharaj, by the desire of the Parikshit Maharaj, Sukdev Goswami describes dynasty of the Vaivashvata Manu. So in that, during this process, he also describes how the supreme personality of the Godhead lying in the waters of the devastation, gave birth to, Lord Brahma, which obviously comes from the lotus that comes from the navel of the supreme personality of the Godhead. So here we see the lineage of Vaivashvata Manu. So before we get into the Sudyumna, how did Sudyumna came into existence, we will also talk about Vaivashvata Manu. How did Vaivashvata Manu, where did he come from, the lineage? So from first Lord Brahma, obviously he came from the lotus generated from the navel of Vishnu. Marichi came from the mind of Lord Brahma. Sorry for the typo there. And then from Marichi, Marichi's son was Kashyapa. Kashyapa through Aditi came Vivashwan. Vivashwan, and through the womb of Samgya came Shraddha Deva or Vaivashvata Manu. So Vaivashvata Manu and King Vaivashvata Manu and Queen Shraddha, they were obviously, they had all the riches in the world, and they were obviously living a very opulent life, but they were not happy. They were not happy because they did not have any kids. So obviously, means at the end of the chapter, you will see that, he ends up having the 10 sons at the end. And then actually this is the start of the Ikshvaku dynasty. But before all this happened, they were not happy because they didn't have any kids. So he decides to, they both, king and queen, decides to make a trip to their spiritual master, Vasishtha. So here they come to, they come to visit him, and they express their, you know, sadness in the sense that, okay, we don't have kids, but just they don't, King Manu doesn't just ask for kids. He goes another step and says, I'd like to have a boy, Guruji. And he so then Muni, Visishta Muni, then he says, okay, fine. So in order to have that, we need to perform yajna, sacrifice. So that's what King Manu requests Vasishta Muni. So here you see in the second picture here on the right side. So obviously they all gather in the next few days. They put the sacrificial arena and they start to perform the yajna. So King Manu, Queen Shraddha, when all their well-wishers, they sit around, and all these learned Brahmins, along with under the guidance of Vasishta Muni, starts performing the sacrifice. So while that begins, an interesting thing happens. Queen Shraddha, she would actually be, she has a vow that she would be just subsisting on milk during this entire process. So she gets up from her seat and leans towards the lead Brahmin who was performing the sacrifice. And obviously he would be surprised what exactly is happening. And then she obviously offer her obeisances, and then whispers, I'd like to have a daughter. And obviously he's puzzled. And a daughter? He responds, yes. She says, and she goes back to her seat, and they start performing the yajna. And this goes on, and the yajna gets completed eventually, and both king and queen return to their palace. And in due course, Queen Shraddha conceives, and she gives birth to a baby. So obviously it means when the baby was delivered, only the midwives are in the room, and then the king is probably waiting outside, walking up and down the hallways. So the midwives delivered the news, you have a Maharaj, you have the baby is born, and it's a baby girl. So obviously for him, it was kind of a bittersweet in the sense that he wanted a boy, and it was a girl. So they eventually named the baby as Ela, but there is still that doubt. It keeps bothering him. Hey, we performed this yajna, and it was obviously performed by the greatest of all sages, Vasishtha, and why did it become futile? Why did the wish did not come true? So with all these questions in his mind, he decides to pay a visit back to Vasishtha Muni. So he goes to Vasishtha Muni and he asks again, Swami, so I think first when he goes there, obviously Vasishtha Muni already knew that this would happen. So he goes to Vasishtha Muni and he knew right away why he was there. So they started having this conversation. So well, how did this happen, Prabhuji? So then Vasishtha Muni assures him, all right, I will make this happen for you. So how did then he starts intensely praying on behalf of King Manu. Vasishtha Muni starts intensely praying for Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu appears, and Vasishtha Muni asks, dear Lord, with your power and Grace, could you please turn Ela into into a male? And the Lord Vishnu grants the wish, and Ela turns into a young, fine gentleman named Sudyumna. And then Sudyumna, obviously, he grows up. He becomes a fine, it's a handsome young king. He goes on just like what's with the kings and their hunting. Obviously, they have to go hunting at some point, and that's what he tends to do here with his ministers. He goes into a forest. Actually, there is Mount Sumeru further north, and he decides to go to hunt with his ministers. He enters there is at the foothills of the Mount Sumeru, there is a forest named Sukumara. So as soon as they enter the forest, and he looks at the deer and he starts hunting towards it, and he wants to tell his ministers, come this way. So he shouts, let's go this way. And he realizes, as soon as he shouts, he realizes that his voice changed. He turns into a high-pitched voice. And suddenly he chuckles. He clears his throat and then basically tries to repeat it. It's still the high-pitched voice. And he starts to look down his body. He turned into a woman. That's when he realizes he turns into a woman. So he gets a little embarrassed. So he doesn't even want to turn back and look at his ministers. But he sums up the courage and turns back, and he sees the ministers as well turn into women. And not just the ministers, even the horses also have turned into women. The female horses. So they don't know what to do, and they obviously don't know why it happened. So they decide to wander around, and finally leaves the Sukumara forest and goes into the surrounding forest. So as they are walking in the surrounding forest, Sudyumna, who is now a woman, comes across a pond, and she sees the reflection of herself in the pond, and kind of wonders, wow, means she thinks to herself, how beautiful I'm looking in that pond. And she further continue their journey in this surrounding forest, and comes across an ashram. And she goes on and knocks on the door of the ashram. And again, fine young gentleman opens the door and asks, how can I help you? And she's King Sudyumna, actually here now the woman Sudyumna says, no, I was just curious who is living in there. But immediately as they open the door and they look at each other, they get instantly attracted to each other. So something like love at first sight. So they become instantly attracted to each other. So, and they don't take much time, and the person actually introduces herself. Just let me take a step back. So the person who opens the door, hey, my name is Buddha. I am the son of the moon god. And so he offers immediately to marry her, and they both get married. So they both get married, and they have a son named Pururava. Yesterday, we heard from Shilpi Mataji this to how Urushi enchants Pururava. So Pururava is the son of Sudyumna in the form of a woman and Buddha. So that's what happens. So then she keeps, after their son is born, she keeps wondering, do I have to be like this for the rest of my life? And she also contemplates on why did this happen more and more. And she starts meditating on this. I guess back in the days, they had the power, if they, meditate, they sincerely meditate, then they do find the answers for their questions. So she was also thinking, who would be able to answer these questions? And obviously, who else would be the person to answer? None other than the spiritual master Vasishtha Muni. So as she was intensely contemplating and meditating on this, Vasishtha Muni appears. And obviously he was also shocked to see King Sudyumna turns into the women. And he asks, what happened? Then she starts explaining, so this is how we went into, we went for hunting into the forest, Sukumara forest. Then he knows right away, oh, you shouldn't have done that. So then he goes on to explain what happened with why is this curse. So he goes on to explain that. So back in the days when this was actually a place, the grove for the intimate place for Lord Shiva and Parvati. So this was so ages ago, and then when there were other munis that were wandering in the forest, they wanted, actually not just wandering in the forest, they come there to see Lord Shiva. And they just don't see Lord Shiva there, they see also Lord Shiva and Parvati, but they're in an intimate relationship. And obviously when sages come in, Parvati gets a little embarrassed. And so obviously that upsets Lord Shiva as well. So he wants to do something to pacify Parvati or Ambika. And he says, whoever enters this forest will turn into a woman. So he wants to obviously satisfy her and make sure that she pacifies, and that's the curse he gives. And hence, obviously, you guys entered the forest, and that's you turned into women. So then that answers the question. So then, obviously, then she wants to know whether will I continue to be like this, or is there any solution? So she almost weeps in front of Vasishtha Muni and asks for some kind of a benediction from, to go back to being a male. And here in this, so we also see that Vasishtha Muni starts intensely praying for Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva appears, but Lord Shiva wants to, then obviously he asks for a boon. Then that is the boon is basically to turn Sudyumna from women into a man again. But this time, but again, Lord Shiva loves Vasishtha Muni, and he also loves Parvati. So he wants to keep that balance, right? So how do I keep both of them happy? So then he offers that. So for 1 month, you're going to be a male, and for the other month, you will turn into the female. So that's kind of the compromise that he comes up with. So compromise solution that he comes up with is that you will turn 1 month into, or you will be 1 month a male, and then the other month into a woman. Okay, so then finally, Sudyumna, he goes back to, he becomes a man, and he goes back to the kingdom. He kind of, again, he becomes, he can have the kingdom for himself. And he ends up having 3 other sons like Utkala, Gaya, and Vimala. They all are very religious. And once the old age is upon him, he retires into the Vanaprastha. goes off into the forest, leaving the kingdom for his son Pururava. So that basically concludes the story of how did Sudyumna become a woman. So who is Sudyumna? Sudyumna is the son of King Manu and Queen Shraddha. And how did they become? Because he entered into the forest of Sukumara forest, which was cursed by Lord Shiva. And then along the way, when Sudyumna in the form of a woman marries Buddha, the son of moon god, that's how the amalgamation between these dynasties happened. So what are the lessons learned here? I think the most important lesson is that even though the King Sudyumna became a woman, he learned to tolerate the change. He could have easily be upset, frustrated, go haywire, and do all kinds of things that would have probably hurt not only him or her, but the kingdom. But he decided to tolerate the change. So I think for us also the lesson is that in order to discover ourselves, it's useful to tolerate the changes in our lives that we may not be able to reverse. Obviously, there are some changes we can, revert them, but there are some that we cannot. So we should, I think it'll be in our best interest if we learn to tolerate these changes. Again, this tolerate, yesterday, Shilpi Mataji, in her presentation, she gave a very beautiful acronym for the lust, how to beat lust with lust. And that she said EL stands for loud and clear chanting. U stands for understanding the philosophy. Yes, for the spiritual association, and T for the tolerance. I think here, this is, I think the main theme here is the tolerating. And then tolerating also helps us to stay peaceful, which obviously helps us to get towards our goals. And there is also a tinge of, if you could say, probably the lust when women, the Sudyumna in the form of a woman meets Buddha. And then there is also a tinge of greed in Manu, just seeking only the boy child rather than having a child, but be it a girl or boy. So you could also draw a couple of lessons from them as well. So with that, I conclude here, and please forgive me probably when I did make mistakes, please correct me, and please add any comments, reflections. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. You have narrated wonderfully and effortlessly the story. And especially your lessons learned is very wonderful. It's a great reminder, especially for me, I would say, the tolerance. So with that, I open the floor. If anybody has any questions, comments, any discussions topic, feel free to unmute, or you can put it in the chat box.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, my Dandavat pranams to you and my Dandavat pranams to everybody assembled here this morning. Amazing class, Prabhu. I just took this opportunity to say Hare Krishna to you, as I am pretty deprived of the association of good Vaishnavas as yourself. So this was an amazing presentation. Very nice. The stories, you just kept weaving one part with the other so seamlessly. You just kept flowing with the story. So thank you for that. And most definitely the lessons learned, especially about tolerance. I just heard a senior devotee say something very wonderful on tolerance, which I thought it's worth sharing. She said that, generally when we think of tolerance, we kind of think that, okay, we are taking a lot of things on ourselves. But she said that the other side of it is that, just think about it, when we become tolerant, we just open ourselves to become more compassionate, and we also become more open to forgive. That's what tolerance teaches us. So it's, perseverance most definitely, but it just broadens our heart even more, and it keeps doing it all the time, making more space for compassion and forgiveness. So I thought that was very beautiful. So it would just blend here so nicely. So thank you so much, Prabhu. This was an amazing present.
Thank you so much for the reflection, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Rukmati Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you very much. Very, very nice, wonderfully presented class.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Sriharsha Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Awesome presentation and great information. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, very nice presentation, Sriharsha Prabhu. As you were narrating the story, I was getting a feeling of watching a movie.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
So it was very well narrated, and lesson learned also very nicely explained. Thank you. Yes, the tolerating part I really like, and as Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
So yes, I like that part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mataji, for the
Well presented, Sriharsha Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay. Should we end?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. Tomorrow it's our weekday schedule. So the class will be at 8:30. And the topic will be, let me just check real quick. It will be from Srimad Bhagavatam. Sorry, I just wanted to be sure before I, misspeak. So King Chitraketu's awakening. It's at 8:30 p.m. So see you all then. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.